I really don't like talking about the ways that I've been abused. It's not like it's a favorite subject for me. Um, but I feel like even though I went through a lot of just was very specific about what had happened to me in some videos, I don't know, a few weeks ago, I feel like people maybe didn't see them. And so then I talked about um, this, what seemed to be perhaps a subsequent picture of a tree that people had put, someone had drawn it and put it in the hallway of my school, and it seemed like that got a lot, it got a fair number of views. It got, I don't know, it's like 50 views. It did. That seems to be the number that it's gotten at YouTube. But it may have been that people saw that video and they didn't see other videos, and so I feel like I have to talk about this again. And then I started. It kind of makes me think about something else I was thinking about over the past week or two also. So even though I don't really like talking about this stuff, I feel like maybe I will, just to try to address it, because there's so many rumors going around about me all the time, and they basically seem to all add up to she's a slut, she did all this stuff, she's a slut. I'm like, so anyway, the tree incident involved another person. It was actually the last time I was with anybody, and that was 2010, and it's the only person I was with for all of 2010. I mean, it was, I don't know, something like March, April of 2010, that the conglomerate just kind of formed, and everything exploded, and I was like writing every day, and they were saying all this stuff about me, but they were saying all this other stuff too about all sorts of things, and I was like, oh my god, this is terrible. This is gonna ruin the world. This is horrible. But it was also, I mean, had kind of already been in transition socially then anyway, so I wasn't really spending time with people. And I happened to just kind of go out for a walk one day and ran into someone that I knew, and we ended up, neither of us had a place to live, so we ended up in a park. We spent, I don't know, several hours together from like the afternoon until nighttime. In Vermont, there's well, there are lots of places to be alone outside. We thought we were alone, but as it turns out, someone was following us with a camera. I will never know who that person is, who did that to me, who has caused me so much pain, and who has, just it's these things that this image that's being perpetrated of me is so it has nothing to do with me. This is such an inaccurate image of me. And we didn't really even do that much, certainly by the standards of, like, I don't know, anybody who's like in their 20s. And I was 35. I don't know, he was like several years younger, but he was definitely like, I don't know, was he 25 by then? Something like that. There was nothing about it that was wrong or illegal. I think maybe you're not supposed to be in a park at night is the only thing. But we weren't doing anything. It's not like we did drugs. We weren't drinking. No, nothing. We were just kind of like, had nowhere else to go. It was summer, and it just kind of one of those things. But someone followed us with a camera, which was disgusting. I mean, really is disgusting. Technically, maybe it's not illegal, but it's a really, really sleazy thing to do. And I've been blamed for it the entire time. I've been blamed for that. I've been totally victim blamed for this. Obviously somebody was following me, saw me, started talking to a guy, decided, I wonder what's going to happen next, and then got exactly what they wanted, right? Which is a horrible thing to want, and is not my fault that I got treated like this. And but I feel like in this video that I talked about this nice picture of a tree at my school, people had drawn, blah, blah, blah. Like, I feel like I didn't really make that distinction about how it wasn't like, I was just like, around one day, and it was like during the daytime, and I just, like fell in love with a tree or something. That's not what happened. I'm not an exhibitionist in any way. It wasn't like that. This, as far as not being with another person is concerned, and videos of me that have been filmed that way, that's all illegal. That was all hidden cameras, and places where you have a reasonable expectation of privacy. You really do. Bathrooms, showers, stuff like that. I mean, in homeless shelters, and yet I've been blamed for that also. And instead of this situation being addressed from the perspective of, you took advantage of someone who was in a homeless shelter. I literally had just gotten out of being in the Vermont State Hospital, a mental hospital, for like 4 months, right? I was totally broke, absolutely broke. and probably they started videotaping me as soon as I got there. I mean, it's just, and me and everybody else who lived in that shelter. So this entire thing has been treated like, instead of saying, how could you take advantage of people who are so vulnerable? It's been treated like it doesn't matter because we're poor, or it's been treated like it doesn't matter because it's also happened. It's also happened in psychiatric units. I mean, think about that. What people are going through when they are patients in mental hospitals, and yet I know that it's happened there in places where I have stayed. Staff have put cameras in the bathrooms to try to get video of me, and which means they've also gotten video of all the other patients too. It's hundreds of people who have been victimized by this, and I'm the one who's getting blamed for it. But I've talked about this stuff before, but I kind of wanted to say that because, and then, I don't know, because there's a perception, right? There's a particular perception of masturbation in general, and that's, I was thinking about that also over the past week or two, and I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, so why is it that there's this stigma that's attached to it? Not that I want to be having these discussions. This. I don't like this. I don't like talking about this stuff, But what am I supposed to do, since the images are out there already and people are talking about them, even if they haven't seen them, and it's gonna be out there for the rest of my life. So for me to talk about it, it's almost like I'm being made to talk about this, because otherwise, all that's gonna happen is that this mantle of other people's perceptions and gossip and all that stuff is going to be put on me, and I'll have to be carrying that around with me. I'll have to be carrying that around with me anyway, because the machine that is putting out all of that misinformation about me is so much bigger than I am, and is so intent on making my life miserable, and is so intent on discrediting me as a person, and is so dependent on all those so many stereotypes about women, stereotypes about sex, all of those things, but this is what I'm able to do, So this is what I'm able to do, is to talk about it and say, well, no, I didn't consent to it, and no, this is what really happened, and no, this is how I feel about it, and no, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, well, okay, on one side of it, the conglomerate, I named it the conglomerate. I didn't know what else to call it. It's like this. It's not really organized. It's not like an organized group, but it's a whole bunch of people who are all kind of doing the same thing. A bunch of corporations, a bunch of individual people, a bunch of governments, the media, that kind of thing. I didn't know what to call them collectively, so I just called them that. I was like, what am I gonna call them? So I called them that. But it's interesting because they don't worry about all the stereotypes they're throwing together, right? But if you think about it, what are they saying? I'm this terrible slut, and yet they have all this video of me, which somehow proves that I'm a terrible slut, right? But the last person that I was with at all was in 2010, and they got video of it, so they know what we did. It was really, and that was it. And that was the only person I was with in all of 2010. And I was with one person also in all of 29. One time each. That was it, right? And it seems like both times got videotaped by some sort of very sleazy person following me with a camera. I mean, it's just there's no reason to treat somebody like this. There is no reason whatsoever to treat somebody like this. And Vermont or at least at the time, was not the kind of place where you thought about that kind of thing. People with cameras following you around. Movie stars are not just strolling the streets in Vermont, or other types of very, very famous people. It's just not like that. So it was not at the forefront of how I thought about anything. I was I was used to just being able to go outside and go for a walk and talk to people and say goodbye to them, and but it wasn't like I was, but it also wasn't like I was running around all the time picking people up and taking them to the parks at night. I mean, I was also totally miserable. That night in particular in 2010, it was the conglomerate had just been hammering me for just weeks and weeks and weeks. I felt frightened, and totally isolated and really, really lonely. And there was this guy that I knew, kind of knew. And so we ended up like walking, and you know, it was in talking and stuff, and then it just kind of, it was just but it was all, it's all if there was something that was kind of desperate about it, that was why. You know, I mean, the conglomerate was just making my life a hell, and has continued to make my life a hell literally every day since. Sometimes I deal with it better than others, but it's just this horrible, like, miserable, awful thing that's happening to me all the time. And there's just no stopping it. They're so vicious, you know? But I was thinking about this. So I was like, all right, over the past week, kind of separately from, you know, trying to, like, make sure that the people who drew that nice picture for me, like, aren't sitting there around being like, she's a loser, she's all about trees, like, you know. I mean, thinking it over too. It's like, well, you know, one side of it is, and I have talked about this a little bit before, but one side of it is the conglomerate is trying to tell people that I'm this terrible, terrible slut, right? But if I haven't been with anybody since 2010, and I was with one person in 2010 and with one person in 2009, then how does that add up to my being a slut? And then there's the question of like, well, you know, okay, so if you masturbate a few times a week, which I was never planning on telling anybody, you know, it's just like, they got videotape, they got video of it, they got video of like everything, you know, everything you do in the shower, they got video of me doing that, and they've just tortured me about it ever since, right? What does that mean about you as a person? Because there's kind of another set of stereotypes about that, right? Which is that, like, you can't, you know, you don't know how to be with some other people, and you can't get a boyfriend, and blah, 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 blah. And in addition to just, like, the idea that just, like, maybe just female, maybe just somebody being female, doing that a few times a week makes me a nymphomaniac. But if I were a nymphomaniac, I would be sleeping with other people, wouldn't I? Wouldn't I be sleeping with other people? And how would I not even know until, like, 2012 or 2013 that there's porn on the internet, which I didn't know. You know, I mean, you would have seen me, I don't know, consuming porn in some way, right? Even if I didn't know it was on the internet, it would be magazines that I would have bought, which, you know, I didn't buy because you track all my purchases and watch everything I do, you know? Or the idea that somehow I'm dirty, but dirty. Nobody's dirty, right? Sometimes I get angry and I say that people do dirty things, like it has more to do with their attitudes about, you know, the way, the sort of kind of the way that they do things, the way that they do things in general, the way they treat people. But I mean, the idea of, I mean, I'm disease free. I really am, you know? And so the way that I chose to deal with, being a sexual person at all was as pretty much as safe as it can get. So how does that make me either a nymphomaniac or dirty in some way? And throughout all of this, it's being totally ignored that this is a crime. This is a crime being committed against me over and over and over again, where I had no control over what was going on. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to use a bathroom without turning off a light again. I don't know how I will ever feel about doing that. You know, everywhere that I am able to turn off a light to use a restroom, I do. I mean, I am not an exhibitionist. I never would have chosen this. There's nothing about this that is my fault. But I'm being treated like it is my fault, or it just doesn't matter, because I was not powerful enough to make it stop. And again, you know, I mean, the idea that there's no recognition of how like that it makes it even more horrible. I don't know. It's like I've been trying to drink more water lately, but maybe it's making me like spittier. I don't know. There's no recognition whatsoever of the fact that this is rich, really the richest and most powerful people taking advantage of people who are poor. It's being treated like it doesn't matter, and it really matters. This is a question. It really is a question of human rights. It really is.